My name is Alina Brooks, and my story began in a quiet town called Riverbend, Missouri. Riverbend was the kind of town where everyone waved, even if they didn't know you well. The roads were narrow, the nights were silent, and the biggest excitement was the Friday football game at the high school stadium. My parents owned a small bakery called Brooks Family Oven. It wasn't fancy. The walls were slightly cracked, the ovens were old, and the front doorbell made a tired ringing sound every time someone entered. But to me, it felt like magic. Every morning before sunrise, my mother kneaded dough with tired hands. My father carefully stacked trays of bread into the oven while wiping sweat from his forehead. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, warm, comforting, familiar. That smell was my childhood. But behind those warm smells, there were struggles. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter. Sometimes my parents whispered late at night, thinking I couldn't hear. But I heard everything. Every worry, every sigh, every sacrifice. And that's when I made a promise to myself. One day, I would change their lives. When I turned 17, my teachers told me I had the grades to go to college. They said I could leave Riverbend, start a bigger life. But I looked at my parents. Their backs were bent from years of work. Their hands were rough from kneading dough. And I knew they needed help more than I needed dreams. So I stayed. Instead of college, I started learning Spanish online. Every night after closing the bakery, I sat behind the counter with an old laptop. Slowly, painfully, word by word. Hola, gracias, buenos dias. At first, I sounded terrible, but I didn't quit because I had a goal. Tourists often pass through Riverbend on road trips, and I noticed many of them spoke Spanish. If I could speak their language, maybe I could help bring more customers to the bakery. Maybe I could help my parents. And slowly, it worked. By the time I was 24, I had saved enough money to move to Dallas, Texas. It was terrifying. Riverbend had quiet streets. Dallas had noise, traffic, crowds, lights that never turned off. I found work at a tour coordination office, helping travelers plan city tours. That's where my life changed forever, because that's where I met Daniel Carter. Daniel was charming, the kind of man who smiled easily and spoke gently. He worked at a luxury hotel downtown. Tall, confident, well-dressed, but what made me trust him was how kind he seemed. He brought me coffee one afternoon while I was buried in paperwork. "Looks like you need backup," he joked. I laughed, and that was the beginning. We talked every day about dreams, about family, about the future, and slowly I fell in love. 6 months later, Daniel asked me something that made my stomach tighten. "Move in with us," he said. Us. That meant his mother, Margaret Carter. The moment I met her, I felt it. That cold feeling, that silent judgment. Her house was huge, polished floors, expensive furniture. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. But her smile, that wasn't warm. It was sharp, measured, suspicious. And from that day forward, my life began to change in ways I never expected.